Hello, and welcome to another episode of the From Her View podcast. Guys, I'm excited to be back and getting back on my schedule. Life has been lifing per usual, and so it's just nice to always be able to come to the podcast and really just share information. So like I honestly haven't done like a girls chat episode, but I had just thought that it would just be really good for like a girls chat episode because I just have so many things on my mind, and I think that it's great for us to feel seen and heard, meaning you are not the only one that's going through these things, and your testimony is obviously going to be so much more helpful for another person, especially if you are putting into plan something to combat what are being a little bit defeated about. And then especially if you are on the other side of it, it just kind of helps you, remember where you came from, and that you're an overcomer. So if you've been listening to the podcast, especially our episode of You Can't Hurt Me or the Comfort Complex, like you understand that we have gone through so many things, and at that moment in time it was a mountain, and we thought that that mountain could not be moved, and here we are, and that mountain is in our rearview mirror and it looks like a molehill. So essentially, this episode is mainly a time capsule of encouragement for myself, just because I feel myself in a very like transitional moment. And I just had a couple of things that I wanted to talk about. So, definitely just wanted to go over some of the things that have been like swirling on my head. I had always said that I was like, I don't want the podcast to be another one of those like gossipy podcasts or any of those podcasts where it's kind of like, oh, clickbait, what's the hot thing that's going on right now? But that's just a lot of the things that's been going on, and it's just quite funny or whatever. So if you are listening to this in 2024, like you know what it is, this Drake and Kendrick battle, like they put it to a brief halt, and nobody really addressed the heavy hitting allegations that were being thrown out. So I'm kind of like looking like ooh, ooh, ooh. But if there's one thing for sure that we know, you know and you know I've been a Drake listener fan since Degrassi, baby, when he came out with his first mixtape, ordered that thing from Canada. So really liked his music thing, but he's kind of transformed into something that artists are supposed to evolve, and I feel like he's evolved into a place where he's making music that he know makes money, and it's not making music necessarily for artistic expression. And when it comes to that point, it does get kind of like sad. I do like it when artists push the envelope and try different things and expand themselves and push themselves further. But it's a difference when you're making mindless, like catchy stuff. And either way, how it goes, like it was really nice, a nice, thing for everybody to be like, oh my god, this is music, like da da da. But they're not like us. I think it was a nail in the coffin on that. But let's get back to what I really wanted to just discuss today. So, um, Mother's Day's just passed, and I really wanted to have a discussion about this because I think that it's very important. So I have had this conversation before with a few people on what it's like, what it truly means to be a woman. And we are not a monolith, but we have shared experiences. And those shared experiences are only relatable if you are a woman. It's one of those things where it's like, I can understand the plight of being a man and having to be a provider and having to go out to the world strong and like a warrior, but wanting to come home and wanting to like shed that armor and be consoled. Like I feel like I get that, but I am not a man, so I'll never understand that. No matter how hard I try, I'll never truly at its core, understand those things. And so I'm just going through this journey as of lately, and it kind of like ties into like a little, like health is wealth and everything like that, but um just going and thinking about the past couple years of my life where I've had random, like when I tell you random, very unique health uh health problems. And it was something that my friend was like, "Oh my god, like you getting like these most obscure things." And truly obscure things. And I was like, this would be a great thing to bring to the podcast because a lot of women either um don't really advocate for their health like they should, um or B, they don't push for answers. So, some of you may know I've talked about it in previous episodes, about how I had a cerebral spinal fluid leak and how me having it really, really dumbfounded the doctors because um, I don't have high blood pressure, I don't have hypertension, I don't have diabetes, I don't have the age of the person that would normally get these things. I was not very young, like early 30s, early 30s. I want to say I was like 30, 33, and didn't have any of those things. The only thing that I had was like, I am, morbidly obese by the standards of the medical society, right? So I do have that going for me. But other than that, had none of those pre-existing conditions, had no recent head trauma, meaning like I hit my head, or been in a car accident or anything like that. So they essentially don't know how it happened, but they know what it was. They knew how to fix it. So if you don't know, a cerebral spinal fluid leak is basically your spinal fluid, your brain fluid, the thing that keeps your brain moisturized and keeps, your spine, that fluid, um, was leaking out of my nose. So I had to have brain surgery, and it wasn't one of those brain surgeries where, like they Frankensteined me or anything like that. Like they did it through my nose, very evasive and not too bad. The recovery was probably the worst thing about it. One of the things that I'm thankful for is the Holy Spirit always looking out because um I knew that that was a very high probability of diagnosis by me just going to Google University and really just, searching my symptoms and being like, okay, this is the worst case scenario of what it could be, and realizing that it in fact was the worst case scenario of what it could be, and that was just like, okay, I'm prepared for it. Give me the worst case scenario of how the surgery could go, how treatment could go, and move forward from that. um if you are a believer and you read the Bible, there are various parts of the Bible where God talks about cutting things off. So it was a portion in the Bible. I can't quote it verbatim or give you the exact location in the Bible, but it's in there where they talk about men getting circumcised. So if you've ever had a son, which I've had a son and I had him circumcised, Um, just the thought of thinking that, first of all, that's your genitalia, so it's a very sensitive area in and of itself. Um, but for you to be a grown man in biblical times getting circumcised with like no local anesthesia, none of the medical advances that we have now, no ice packs, none of that. That's a true like cutting off, and they did that as a showing of like of God. And then there's parts in the Bible where God says that He will prune you if something is not producing. Like he'll cut it off and he'll like prune you. So I really want you to remember that, because these two things that happened to me, I feel like were very, very prolific, very intentional, very orchestrated by God. And so that's one of the things that I want us to sit back and have reflection of things that go on in our life, and see, like, first of all, nothing is um purely by happenstance. Like, it is just not. Like, I know this was God, because this is a very, very rare condition. It's very rare, like very rare. Um, and it's one of those things where it's like, it's a rarity, honey. Like, come on, like, this is crazy. And so while I was getting ready to have the surgery, they gave me anesthesia. They're putting me under, whatever. And I can hear them on the outside of the room, talking, and they're like, "Oh yeah, there is brain protruding through the hole, so we're gonna have to amputate." I said, "Amputate? Y'all cutting off?" So a portion of my brain, not, they said it was not large. They said it was not necessarily, but necessary for me, for like any of my motor functions or anything like that. But I do think that that was very, very, how do I want to word this? Like, it was very important. It was very intentional that I heard that conversation, because as soon as I heard that portion, then the anesthesia want to kick in, and then I'm out for the count. Do you know what I'm saying? Like, come on. So that was important, and going through situations like that, um, I knew that this situation, this illness was not going to kill me. I knew that it was not going to kill me, but I knew that the journey was going to be the journey for healing was going to be very difficult, and it was. Um, I am a person that is, 5'1". I look like a pretty princess. I'm freakishly strong. Like, freakishly strong for what I look like. I don't look like I should be as strong as I am, but I am very strong. And it was one of those things where it's like, now I'm weakened. Like, in that moment, I understood what Samson felt like when he got his hair cut off, baby, because like I was in a situation where like I could not bathe myself. I could not go to the bathroom by myself. Um I literally was just like a former shell of myself becoming something new. And that was something that was really life altering for myself. I did accomplish a whole lot of things during that recovery process. And so so that was important. Like, it's not something that I'm actively using as of right now. Like, God, come on, what's going on? Why did you have me do this? But it is something that I did it. Um, I achieved it under the circumstances of recovering from a brain surgery. But how does that correlate to what I'm talking about? But what it means to be a woman? So, I mean, I am divorced, and I have experienced miscarriage before, and it was very difficult for me. First of all, this ties into being a woman, but I have to explain things from her view, right? She is a melanated Black woman. So these are Black stories, right? They're not stories like false, but this is my reality. It's very difficult for us to get true advocacy when it comes to any sort of health issue, concerns, or problems, unless there's somebody that looks like us. Unless there's somebody that looks like us 9 times out of 10. And I say 9 times out of 10 because this is going to be like, the caveat for that. But statistically, we die more during childbirth. We have a lot more of deaths when it comes to female issues, and it's very difficult because I'm like literally experiencing a miscarriage, like bleeding profusely, like dove over in pain, just like it's everywhere. And I go to the ER and they're like, girl, you ain't having no miscarriage. You're having like a bad period. And I was like, sir, like, no. That's what he surmised my pain to. Like, he didn't do any real testing. He didn't do an ultrasound. He didn't do no blood testing, like nothing. He was like, girl, it sounds like your period was late and it finally came and it's heavy. And I'm like, sir, are you the proud owner of a vagina? Because if you are not, you would not understand like what I'm saying. And it was very difficult for me because I just felt very much unheard. And at times, being a woman, that is an experience that we have, is feeling unheard a lot of the time. And it's difficult, but I have learned to use that aspect as a superpower. Because at the end of the day, you will feel unheard, but people heard you. They'll just use whatever you said as their own idea, but you still get done whatever you needed to get done. So at the end of the day, it just kind of is what it is. But, I fast forward to just recently, um, and having that same situation, and just like uncontrollable bleeding, just uncontrollable bleeding, and really trying to figure out like what the heck. So I go to my doctor for my annual. It's a new doctor, and when I tell you that, like in that moment, I understood what it felt like to be the woman with the issue of blood. Because when I think about it, I probably had been dealing with this situation. My ex-husband brought it to my attention. Had been dealing with this situation for at least 10 years. At least 10 years. And then no doctor believing a word that I said. Like, none. Going to the ER, nobody's listening to me, whatever the case may be. So I was just like, whatever. But this situation, I was like having the uncontrollable bleeding outside of the time that I'm supposed to be bleeding. I'm like, child, what's going on? Like, I just don't want to live like this no more. Like, what is going on? So, the doctor was like, you know, all your results for everything else is good. You have a clean bill of health. I want to do this ultrasound. And she was like, it's very different. It's a uterine ultrasound. And what I'm going to do is fill up your uterus with saline. When I fill up your uterus with saline, she basically was explaining to me that your uterus, when you look at it in a traditional ultrasound, it's like a deflated balloon. But she said you could put a coin in a deflated balloon and it looks like there's nothing in there. But when you blow that balloon up, you'll be able to see what is really in there. And so The procedure was scheduled, rescheduled, and then it finally happened. And lo and behold, it was something in there. It was something in there. And she was like, okay, like we're gonna take a biopsy of it. We're gonna wait for everything to come back clear. So thank God it was not cancerous. Um, it was not cancerous at all from the biopsy. So she was like, okay, we're gonna go ahead and schedule surgery. So what was so funny about it is like she's like, oh yeah, like I'm gonna have you meet with LaShawn, which is so funny because LaShawn is my daughter's middle name. And she was like, we're gonna have you meet with LaShawn and she's gonna schedule your appointment. And I was like, okay, cool, like perfect. So I go to schedule it, and we are like literally, I kid you not, dressed the same. Both with our wedge Converse, leather, both in like a same style outfit, both with our smartwatches, our nail colors the same. Like it was so funny. Glasses shaped the same but different, but hers were clear white, mine are like a blush clear. It was so funny. But she was like, yeah, we can get you in next Wednesday. I was like, next Wednesday? Like, so now I'm going to have another surgery. Okay. My last surgery that I had, I was 33. I'm 35. Getting ready to turn 36. Having once again another surgery. Something else is getting cut off of me. So everything is scheduled. I go, I have the surgery. It was a day surgery, so I wasn't in the hospital for like 2 weeks or 3 weeks like I was when I had my brain surgery. So it was a very straightforward, you know, procedure. Everything went out without a hitch. And you know, the doctor was like, "Okay, you're going to be completely out of it when it's all over. So, I'm going to, relay whatever message to whomever you have with you." So I had my sister with me. And she was like, I'm going to also take imagings just so you can see, like what it was. Because I did say, like, I want to see, like, what is this? So from the ultrasound, she could only see the one. When she had her camera and got in there were three things that she had to cut off. Okay. She said there was one at the very opening, a polyp at the very opening, and thickened uterine lining, and that other polyp that she saw initially. So three things had to get cut off in that moment. And that was three things that had to get cut off that had to do with me being, like my femininity, me being a woman. My other surgery, something had to get cut off and repaired. So it was a part of my brain. So my brain, the way that I think, my processing. So something had to get cut off of how I was thinking about things. And then it had to get repaired so I can think differently. And then in this situation, three things had to get cut off of me that had to deal with my femininity in order for me to produce safely. Because that's what it was. She was like, you're not going to be able to carry anything in this type of environment. Like, it's just not going to be possible. And so it was one of those things that whole moment in time really put in perspective for me the day-to-day plights that it is like being a woman. It's very beautiful. It's very like it's very beautiful and magical and fun, but it's very difficult and hard, and one of those things that it cannot be surmised in just our appearance. It's literally who we are, So it's like I can't put on a wig and get my nails done and wear a dress and I'm a woman. Like there's so much more to that, like down to like the way that we nurture. We are natural born helpers. And it just made me really lean into that and wanting to, not to say that I'm not at peace with those things, but really lean into that and really take into consideration for me not to take for granted the packaging in which God sent me to be here on this earth. And that's kind of the messaging that I would like to relay to you. Obviously, this is from her view, so it's from the view of a woman, right? It's girl talk. I'm talking about something that's real because we have to be real about our health, especially something in that area. I do believe that an influencer did die child because she was misdiagnosed for something like that. So I am immensely thankful for my doctor who honestly, that's a whole nother thing, like how I picked this doctor. I just like randomly picked the doctor, but it was not a random thing. God intended it to be so, but I picked her. I was just like, hey, like, okay, cool, like, whatever. I just picked her, right? There was no, I can't give you a rational answer to why I did it or a logical answer for why. I just did. Coming to find out that she is like a, like her speciality is helping women get pregnant. So I I happened upon, right? But I didn't for real, right? But everything was like intentionally orchestrating itself that that's what she does. And so when I'm telling her these things, she immediately was like, "Oh, I needed to do this to dive a little bit deeper and to see whatever is going on." And it was just refreshing. It's refreshing, and I absolutely thank that doctor. I'm so happy that I even got in with her. Like at first, I was like, "I'll get in with somebody else," because my yearly went into the next year, child, because she was so booked and busy. But she's booked and busy because she's amazing at what she does. Um, and by far, like besides the doctor who did my brain surgery, the absolute best bedside manner. I feel like any time previously that I've been to a doctor, it has always been super, super transactional in the sense of they weren't really like trying to get to know you as a patient or anything like that. They were just like, hey, your neck hurt? Oh, your neck hurt? Oh, how do you sleep? You sleep funny? Oh, okay. Well, here, take 3 of these and you'll be all right. Like that's usually how it is. But like, no, she like sat down, talked to me, like what are your concerns? Tell me some things that are going on, like how many of these, how many of that. And she was like, okay, it's sounding like we're going to need to do this procedure. Okay, what I'm going to do with you today, like literally sat down and did it. Now, normally doctors will be like, oh no, be undressed and ready when I come in. And I'm going to have these conversations with you while I'm poking and prodding. And she's not like that. She's like, I'm going to have a separate conversation for you because she's a woman. She understands how that is. Like one of our gifts by being a woman. So one of our gifts is that we can take the smallest of anything and make large quantities out of it. So a man can give us a seed and we can make a whole human being out of a seed, or even with, like, let's say and I would do this all the time, and my ex-husband used to be, like, mystified because even my kids are mystified because till this day, that's just, like, how I am. Like, they'll be like, "Oh, like, there's nothing really to eat, like, we really don't have any food," like, whatever the case may be, and then I get in there and I'm like, "Okay, did it ba da ba ba ba," and then we have, like, leftovers for, like, 2 or 3 days, and they were like, "Where how did you even do that? I didn't even see that." That's a gift that we have. Biblically, we are help mates. We are the mates that help. We are the ones that can see from the vantage point that our partner cannot see, and we can transform things and make things happen. And it's one of those things that we have to be able to relish and really take take pride in that. Take joy in that. Um this is a conversation for some of us who feel like defeated, and what is that Beyonce, if I were a boy, like, and it's no tea, no shade to anybody that feels like that, but I'm a woman, and this is how I feel as a woman, that my everyday is something completely different in uncouth to another person's everyday. I have the situations where there are things that I want to do in spaces that are like male dominated. And then they look at me like, how are you going to do this? You have nails. You shouldn't have nails. Oh, like you're too like pretty. You shouldn't be doing this. Oh, like let me help you. Let me take care of you. And none of those things are inherently bad because it's coming from a place of like, I am strong man, let me help you, which, hey, please help me, okay? Because I will gladly ask for some help. But that is something that we struggle with on a day-to-day basis. And so I really want to have a conversation around that because you have to sit back and think what it means to you. Because before, the first thing that he created was not our gender. He created our souls first. He created our spirits first. Okay? And then he put us in the body, in the packaging. And these are experiences that we have because of our packaging. It's almost like you can have a SIM card that was in, you know, an iPhone back when they had iPhones had SIM cards, or if they even still do. And then you put it into a Samsung phone. Um, at its core, that SIM card is still going to have the same functionality that it's supposed to do, right? It's going to store crucial data, contact information, all the properties and intellectual properties and everything that from that carrier, but it's in a packaging of something different. And so that's one of the things that we have to understand, that the packaging was intentional. And there is something that you were sent on this earth to do, that people are going to gravitate to you because of your packaging. And that's kind of like the full circle, spectrum that it gave to me, was like, okay, this is who I am. I shouldn't be upset or mad about these things. So instead of me feeling so upset and so defeated about being underestimated because of how I look and being a woman, I chose to use it as a superpower, because people tend to speak a little bit more freely when they feel like you're not a threat, or when they feel like you don't have knowledge. They speak freely. And it's one of those things that I could use as a superpower. And that's mainly the conversation. It's just be very serious about advocating for your health. Be very serious about that. Um, this was something that was going on with me for 10 years. 10 years, 10 years. And if you are a woman who cannot conceive, you understand how like that feels because you know that we're made to do those things. And so feeling like you can't do something that you're made to do, it it is kind of soul crushing. It's very hurtful at its core. God is always very intentional in making a way out of no way. And making a way out of no way doesn't necessarily mean miraculously you'll have a baby of your own, but it might be that you will be able to adopt the baby that needed you to be their mom. And we can't overlook all the possibilities of how we can be mothers in this day and age. Like I am a natural nurturer. I'm naturally mothering, and to the point where I had to step back from um, one of my careers because I was like, man, like I'm really taking time, pouring my heart into these girls. And I'm like, I have a daughter at home and a son at home that I need to be pouring my heart into. So, like, I need to go be a mom. I'm momming these kids. I need to go be a mom to my kids. So, like, I gotta go. But it's one of those things that it is our superpower. And we should relish in that. And we should not be ashamed of that. And we should take full owning of who we are. And please make sure that your health is paramount to the things that are going on with you. I was one of those people where like, and I didn't think about it this way, but I do know a person who thought like health insurance was like a credit card, and they were like, I don't want to have to use my insurance. And it's like, baby, if something is wrong with you, you better go see a doctor. But it's one of those things where, you know, my my mother passed away from a condition that men do get it, but it's predominantly a disease that women do get. And it's one of those things where this is not the space or place for me to really dive deep into that story. Um just because it's one of those things where it's not only like my story, but it's the story of me and my siblings and stuff like that. So I feel like I really don't want to dive too deep into it, but it was a situation that it could have if it could have been um it could have been dealt with in an earlier stage. And that was definitely a life lesson for me, is to really take the time and be very intentional when it comes to things that are going on. So that is a condition that me and my siblings, we have to be very on top of when it comes to that, because it's something that, you know, someone in our family had it. So it is a marker to say, okay, you could also develop this. Please be on the lookout for it. So basically, essentially, my girlfriends, um, actually, my audience is predominantly male, but if you are a woman, you know a woman, you love a woman, please tell her to take her health seriously. Please don't let her deal with situations and think that that's just the normalcy of her life. Please, 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 please seek medical attention. And even if it is like for myself, I was so defeated. Like I sought medical attention after medical attention after medical attention, and all these people was telling me, like, girl, you was crazy and ain't nothing wrong with you. Because my situation is a little bit different. Like I already had kids. I I have kids. I know I'm able to produce children. So when this was going on with me, I was like, what is going on? Like, what's going on? And to this day, I still desire to have more children once I get me a husband. So that's something that's definitely I'm believing God for. And I think that is something that's going to definitely happen to me. And I can't wait to share that with the podcast because that's going to be amazing. But once again, this has been an episode of the From Her View podcast. It was a little girl chat. It was a little bit geeky, but for the most part, health is the true wealth. I was actually listening to a Social Proof podcast with David Shands. He was actually doing his hot seat segment. And so in his hot seat segment, he had a guy that had a clothing brand, and on what their apparel, they had like sayings, and one of them was health is wealth. And he was like, okay, that messaging, like, what does that mean to you? Health is wealth. And he couldn't really articulate that in a way that could sell David on it. Because David said, well, oh my god, I can't even remember what that man's name is, but the maker of Apple, whatever, they were like, he wasn't healthy and he was very wealthy. You know, there's a lot of people that are wealthy and they're not healthy. So he was like, you really need to change that. But for what is health is wealth means to me. Your health is something that money cannot buy. They can buy treatment, you can get things like that, but at the end of the day, if you have deteriorated to a point like with that man from Apple, he deteriorated to a point where it didn't matter how much money he had. While he was at that point in his life, he wished he had his health, and he would trade his health for the wealth. Okay, I'm pretty sure he would, because he could get that money back up again. So that's what that means to me. And that's something that I focus on in my day to day, is not trying to burn myself out or anything like that, but being smarter, um, taking my health into consideration. That means like what I eat, working out, all those good things, taking time off. If I don't feel good, don't don't go into work if you don't feel good. Like, as just a common courtesy to other people, but to yourself. Like, because at the end of the day, if you drop 6 feet under, they'll find somebody else to do exactly what you're doing. But the people that are absolutely important to you and you are important to them, that is the people that are really going to lose out if you don't take care of yourself. So, this is an episode of From Her View podcast. And like I say, every episode, we have survived 1,000% of everything that was sent to break us. So, we got work to do.